This is Bloomberg Business of Sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
I'm Scarlet.
And I'm Damian Sassower.
Oh, the band is back. Coming up on the show today, we talk with basketball Hall of Famer, three-time WNBA MVP, and four-time WNBA champion, Sheryl Swoopes.
Sports gave me so many opportunities, obviously while I was playing and on the court, but since I retired, and the things that are important to me and that I'm passionate about off the court, sports gave me that platform to be able to have a voice.
Swoopes is also very involved in health advocacy, especially for breast cancer screening services, through a partnership from RadNet, an outpatient imaging services company. Plus, we'll hear from one of the greatest hockey players of all time. Guess who? Mark Messier. And all that and more straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, the NBA is closing in on a huge, and I mean huge, media rights deal with NBC, ESPN, and Amazon. We welcome Bloomberg News Global Business of Sports reporter Ira Boudway to help us break it down. Ira, welcome, old friend, to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
How's it going?
Yeah, well, my first thought, I got to admit, I feel sorry for TNT because they're out. And it's too bad because I'm just wondering what's going to happen now with Chuck and Shaq and Ernie. What's going to happen to that? I love that show.
Well, so it's not guaranteed that that they're out, right? Because there's no rule that says the league couldn't add a package. They can do as many or as few as they want. But it does look like they may be on the outs. They're not, in our reporting and in the reporting of others, it doesn't look like Warner/TNT is going to be in the mix this time. But, none of these things are final, and we still may be weeks away from knowing for sure.
But right now, it looks like it's going to be NBC Comcast, which, of course, owns NBC, and Amazon as the main partners here. And I'm wondering
if ESPN back.
And ESPN, yes, of course, which is owned by Disney. And I'm wondering if that is as much Warner Brothers Discovery's fault, meaning it just didn't have the financial resources to go in there and make a strong bid, or was this a case of Comcast being very, very opportunistic?
I think it's a few things. I think one big difference maker for Comcast is that they have a broadcast network. So they have NBC. Warner does not have a broadcast network. And the future of sports broadcasting, more and more of sports media, more and more looks like a return to broadcast networks as the cable bundle continues to atrophy. So there's both movement towards streaming and movement back toward broadcast antenna free TV. And Warner is not great at the streaming yet. I think the NBA looks at Max as a kind of muddled sports product. They have that add-on Bleacher Report service that you have to do on top of Max in order to get their sports content. Not a very good pure play sports streaming option. No broadcast network. So really they are about their cable channels, TNT, where they put the NBA games, and TBS where they put a lot of their sports. So that looks less attractive to the NBA as a way to distribute its games, even though they have this, great studio show that we've been talking about with Chuck and Shaq and Ernie and Kenny, that would potentially go away, and that is a selling point. They don't have the kind of distribution that I think the NBA wants, and then they just don't have the balance sheet of Amazon, Disney, or Comcast. So when you're talking about paying $2.5 billion a year, which is what they would have to do to match Comcast's offer, which they have a right to do. That's harder for them to do. And then the league can still say, you know what, your $2.5 billion is not worth as much as Comcast's $2.5 billion because it has better distribution than you do.
All right, let's get into the numbers a bit, Ira. I just want to break it down for our audience here. $76 billion over 11 years is what we're talking about here. It looks like NBC's at $2.5 billion a year, Amazon at $1.8 billion a year, and Disney at $2.6 billion a year. These deals go into effect after the 24-25 season. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this also includes the WNBA, does it not?
That is not entirely clear, but from what we understand, Amazon already has WNBA games and would be adding to that inventory through this deal with the NBA. And ESPN also already has WNBA games and would be re-upping potentially on that in this deal. But then there's other chunks of WNBA inventory that would still be up for grabs. So how much is included here and even whether it is not totally clear. We've been told that the WNBA is in the Amazon and ESPN deals and that it represents a significant increase in what they were getting before.
Well, you're going there, Ira. That's exactly what I want to know. Are they breaking out how much of that for the Players Association, right? For future contracts, right? I mean, are they breaking out how much of that deal goes to the women's as opposed to the men's?
I think there has to be some pegging of that number. Yeah, because again, you're right. That would be how you would look at revenue for the WNBA. It would be the biggest piece of their national revenue would be media rights, and that is baked into the collective bargaining agreement with the players. Is how the league does affects their pay. So they have to say what they're paying for that piece in these deals. I mean,
Michael Barr, that is the missing number that I want to sink my teeth into. I'd really like to know, how NBC, how ESPN, how are we valuing women's sports today?
Oh, I think it's going to be way more valuable, especially with Caitlin Clark.
And Sheryl Swoopes and all the legacy of I mean, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I know later on we're going to talk about the hard fouls that Caitlin Clark's getting. So you got your prize product out there, but we're going to save that for later on because there are two other topics, especially in baseball. I'm going to file this under what in the hell were you guys thinking department. And I'm going to start now. And this guy, he had a decent career, but now a lifetime ban betting on baseball, Tucupita Marcano.
Tucupita Marcano, yeah.
And I don't understand why you would bet on baseball and in your own sport. Let me put it this way. We have a rule here at Bloomberg. We can't do any day trading. So you know what happens? We don't do any damn day trading. So why in the world do people still do this?
It's sad in a way. You look at this. So there were 5 players, 2 major leaguers, 3 minor leaguers who got hit with different levels of suspensions. And Marcano was the one who was banned for life because he was betting on Pirates games while he was on the Pittsburgh Pirates roster, even though he was recovering from injury and didn't play in those games. So the rule basically is if you're betting on games that you're involved in, you're out. And if you bet on baseball at all, but not games you're in, it's a year. And so the fact that this is happening with legal sports books suggests that either the outreach by the league, the education efforts are not working, or it's just
or
really
gambling is a disease. I mean, let's be real. I mean,
addiction for sure. I mean, but you look at the A's pitcher Michael Kelly, who was suspended for a year. He bet less than $100 on baseball. So that suggests that at least that they were aware of and that they are punishing him for. The bets that they tracked on baseball, less than $100. So that doesn't seem like, an out of control gambling habit. It just seems like a failure to understand the rules, which is hard to understand because Rule 21 is a famous piece of baseball. It's on the clubhouse. It has to be posted.
Goes back to Pete Rose.
Of every club goes back to Pete Rose. So you would think that players would know. And then you kind of have to wonder, too, is this a case of better monitoring? We're learning about more of these cases?
Yes.
To go uncaught, which is what the league said when they started to embrace sports betting, is that bringing it to light, making it regulated, actually allows us to monitor it better. And so you could see that okay, maybe that's working. But the education piece seems to not be working when you get cases like this.
And these are instances where it's legal betting, right? I mean, there's plenty of illegal betting, which we're not even getting into here. And of course, this comes as all the leagues embrace partnerships and relationships, business relationships with these sports betting companies, whether it's FanDuel, whether it's Caesars, you name it, MGM Grand, that's another one, DraftKings, right. Yeah. So it's in your face. It's in the players' faces, certainly, constantly. There are shows built around it, right? There's programming devoted to it. And the players are somehow supposed to ignore the fact that they are pieces of data for a betting public, but not be participating in it or addressing it in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it is tricky. We've seen it across every league. So the NFL's had players suspended for betting on team property, right? In the NFL, if you're betting on any sport while you're at an NFL facility, that's against the rules. And then we've seen players, C.J. Moore, who just re-signed with the Lions, was out for a year for betting on football. And in all of those cases, you're talking about betting with regulated books. These are bets that would be fine if it weren't for the fact that these players play those sports. Mm-hmm. And in all of those cases, there's no indication of any kind of manipulation in that the players were throwing games or otherwise underperforming. We have seen in the NBA, Jonte Porter of the Raptors was, allegedly manipulating games. Yeah. He had racked up some really big betting debts, and as a way to pay those off, according to allegations that are now coming out.
He was injuring himself during the games. He was taking himself out.
He was leaving. Yeah, he was removing himself from games early, claiming illness and alerting his partners ahead of time, his co-conspirators. And they, one case, a guy won $40,000 on a parlay that involved Porter's stats. So that is where the leagues, I think, have a real problem because that damages public confidence. So all of these cases, I think, create a cloud of suspicion. And then when you have cases where there is, in fact, somebody not performing to their utmost, right, then you lose confidence in the product. And that has always been what the leagues said they were afraid of with betting. Now they've embraced it. They're making revenue from it. It's a big area of growth for them, but they're facing this consequence of, sometimes the players, whether it's happening more or just seems to be happening more, I think fans, can have a right to be suspicious sometimes.
Ira Boudway, you are the man, Bloomberg News Global Business of Sports reporter. Thank you, sir, for talking with us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, we hear from six-time Stanley Cup champion Mark Messier. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports, Bloomberg Radio, around the world.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet and Damian Sassower. On the way, we'll hear a conversation with the Monumental Sports and Entertainment Chairman and CEO Ted Leonsis. But first, we listen in on a conversation with all-time hockey great, six-time Stanley Cup champion Mark Messier. He spoke with our colleagues Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. I know them earlier this week on Bloomberg Radio. Let's listen in on their conversation.
Mark, I could do a 3-hour conversation with you in honor of Guy Lafleur in his criticism of hockey, but let's set up right now the Florida Panthers against your sacrilege to those of you that are Rangers fans, Mark Messier's Edmonton Oilers. Who are you going to be rooting for, Mark?
Well, I've said all year long that I love the way the Florida Panthers play. They're probably one of my favorite teams to watch, but unfortunately they're playing against a team that I spent a lot of years with, had a lot of success with some of the greatest players in the world there. So, and I still know so many people back in my hometown of Edmonton, so I'm gonna have to stick with Edmonton in this one.
When you look at hockey today, and it's something that Paul Sweeney and Rich Truman are much more up on than I am, to me it's a radically different game than the controlled aggression that you played. Are you bored with the modern game?
Well, I'm not actually. In fact, we always speak about this all the time, and it's still a tough game. And you can see the teams that go on to win the Stanley Cup, the grueling 6 months in the regular season. You're basically playing 4.5 games a week for over 6 months with travel. And then you got to go through 2 months of the playoffs and eliminate 3 other teams in order to do that, or 4 teams in order to do that. So the game is tough in many ways. Of course, they've changed the rules, and in my opinion, for the betterment of the game. I think it's opened up the skill, it's opened up the speed of the game. But as you've seen in these playoffs, in order to score, you still got to get into those tough areas, and you got to be willing to stay there once you get there. And it's not comfortable to go there.
Right.
So I think in overall, the game is still an incredibly tough game. It's a dangerous game, but that's one of the things that makes it so exciting.
Hey, Mark, as a Rangers fan, thank you for delivering the cup here to Ranger fans here. And I know you won't buy a drink or a meal in this city ever again. Talk to us about the Rangers this year. I mean, a great season, some great players that I know the city rallied around, but they did not really get it done in the postseason. Is this a team that needs to be broken up, or can it be built upon?
Well, it's hard to say the team should be broken up, but I have to say, they set all kinds of franchise records this year. They had a tremendous regular season. They seem to be really a tight-knit team, which is a crucial part of winning a Stanley Cup. So they got a lot of things to be positive about. You can't throw it all down the drain because you lost to an incredibly strong Panther team. There were some areas in the game that will probably need to be addressed, and I'm sure the management will do that. But overall, of course, you can't say it's a great success if you don't win the Stanley Cup. But I think there's a lot of things that you can really be positive about this team. And the reality is that only one team is going to go away happy this year, and that's a team that wins the Stanley Cup. And the regular season is one thing, and as we've seen during the regular season and then the playoffs, it's a different game. It's a different mindset in order to be successful. And if you're a good player and you're a player that's relied on to score, the other team's job is not to allow you to do that. And so you have to be able to adapt and change your game in playoffs when teams are focusing on you individually to not allow you to get to your game that has made you successful. And the good players find a way. And you also have to remember that, even though that we have some of our players on the Rangers team, they don't have a tremendous amount of playoff experience.
Yep.
They're getting it. But, playoff experience matters when it gets down to the nook and cranny like it did in the conference finals this year against a team that played incredibly stringent defense and put a lot of pressure on the team.
Mark, you will always be 32. But the truth is, some people retire and they check out. You did not. Tell us about the Mark Messier Foundation. Last time I talked to you, you were trying to build 3 or 5 or 12 ice rinks in northern Manhattan. Tell us about Answer the Call and what you're doing with first responders.
Yeah, I was lucky when I came to New York to get involved with some amazing people. And it was always important for us. I remember our coach, Glenn Sather, back in Edmonton, that he made every one of the teammates when they were 18 years old affiliate with a charity. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to us, and certainly me as a professional, because it gave me some perspective outside the game. And I got involved with the Alberta Lung Association, and to this day we still try to help out. I came to New York, and one of the first things I did was join the Cancer Institute over in Hackensack, Tomorrow's Children, which was incredible. I have a skyway over there that links the Children's Pavilion and the Women's Pavilion. I put all my memorabilia in there, and it's a place for the kids and the families to go get some reprieve. And Answer the Call, as you know, is the first responders in New York City for NYPD, FDNY, and their Port Authority. And we know how impactful that charity's been to the city of New York, and what great work we do over there. And of course, my own foundation, the Mark Messier Foundation, that's really kind of geared towards creating access and opportunity for kids, underprivileged kids that would never have the opportunity to play some of the sports and get on the ice and other things. So that's been a big part of not only since I've been retired, but also when I first came to New York. So it's been a lot of years of some incredible work that's been done by a lot of amazing people.
That's 6-time Stanley Cup champion, hockey legend Mark Messier, in the conversation with our colleagues Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Surveillance, as heard live on Bloomberg Radio. Catch that show every weekday morning starting at 7 a.m. Eastern and stream it live on YouTube. Now we head to D.C., where billionaire Monumental Sports and Entertainment Chairman and CEO Ted Leonsis is planning big things for the sport sports scene in the nation's capital. Leonsis spoke with Bloomberg Balance of Power host Joe Mathieu earlier this week about his plans for D.C., starting with how the deal that would have brought the Wizards, Capitals, and Mystics to Virginia fell through.
I never signed anything. That's the most remarkable thing. And
it was a handshake.
Yeah, it was a handshake deal. And, Washington, D.C., came here from Lowell, Massachusetts on a Greyhound bus in the mid-'70s, fell in love with the city, went to Georgetown University, and then we stood up AOL and built really the commercialization of the Internet not too far away in Virginia.
Yeah.
And I've always looked at this community, the DMV, if you will, being the district, Maryland, and Virginia. It's the most important market. It's 10 million people. It's the third or fourth largest DMA in the country. And so, D.C., we need a strong D.C., we need a strong downtown. And we own the building, we own the teams, we own the network, the studios here. And so we've made a big commitment, and we'll work with the mayor and help to reimagine what should the next version of downtown rebirth look like.
Yeah. I want to ask you about what that looks like, but did Governor Glenn Youngkin get a little over his skis when he shook your hand on that deal? What happened?
I think the governor is a really great executive, and he dealt with what basically everyone is dealing with, a real bifurcated view of what is best for people. And when I said politics took over, this was a great, great business deal. And we were told that your business isn't wanted here. And so, and that was done not through where we were being located in Alexandria, but by the political machine in Richmond. And so, you get to the point where you say, there's no place like home. And we worked a deal with the mayor and the city council. And, we're a part of that team, and the country needs a functioning, strong, safe, clean, growth mindset Washington, D.C. We're a bellwether, if you will, for the entire country. And we fell behind a bit pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic. And I'm really glad that there's been this reckoning, if you will, and it's happening in all major metro areas. And now we can move forward in coordination with business and the philanthropy community. We have a unique set of issues here because of the federal government overlay.
Yes, right.
And, just every day we have to deal with things that connect Virginia and Maryland and D.C., like the metro, like the traffic that needs to be mitigated, like the infrastructure dollars that are being spent on roads and road closures. And so all of that, I think we can play a big social responsibility role in helping to make things better.
Well, you're going to play a pivotal role in the future of the city and the downtown area. I heard you mention the other day you might be interested in, speaking of talking like a politician, an honorary title, Vice Mayor of the DDC, downtown DC, because that's kind of what you are. You joined city officials on a trip to Las Vegas to a retail conference a couple of weeks ago to bring business here. You're representing the city in what is truly a balance of politics and business, isn't it?
Yes, you may not know this, but I was once elected mayor of my town in Florida. I served for 6 years as mayor. Every time I see Mayor Bloomberg, we joke and call each other honorable. So you should pay a little more respect to me there.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate
Yes, I understand the role that we can play in attracting businesses. And frankly, I said I was surprised you'd always heard how well managed the state of Virginia is. It has low taxes. It's a great state. But I found it easier to negotiate and work with the city of D.C. than I did with the state of Virginia. And so, I'm going to go out and be an evangelist for the city, for the mayor, for the city council. I want a higher quality of life for our employees. We bring 2.5 million people into the city every year for our concerts, for NCAA tournaments, for the Capitals, for the Wizards, for the Mystics. We have back-to-back Mystics games.
You sure do.
WNBA tonight and tomorrow night. There'll be 30,000 people or so in those 2 nights coming into D.C. And most of them come in from Maryland and Virginia, and they'll spend money in D.C., pay tax dollars here.
That's billionaire Ted Leonsis, chairman and CEO of Monumental Sports and Entertainment, speaking with Bloomberg Balance of Power host Joe Mathieu earlier this week. Don't miss Bloomberg Balance of Power weekday afternoons from noon to 2, and again at 5 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Television and Radio. Up next, we turn back to basketball for a special conversation with WNBA legend Sheryl Swoopes. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues of the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr.
I'm Scarlet.
And I'm Damian Sassower.
Man, we can make so much money of the stuff that happens off mic that we need to save this stuff and then one day just air it. We'd make a boatload of money. Sheryl Swoopes, that's all I got to say. She's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. She was the standout in the WNBA. And by the way, if you want to win on Trivial Pursuit and someone says, who was the first player to sign in the WNBA? It's Sheryl Swoopes. Sheryl, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm going to start with the happy business part here. You've been the pioneer of Air Swoopes, the Nike shoe, and it's been successful. Take us through that, please.
First of all, you're not supposed to give away that trivia answer. Hopefully it'll be useful. This thing called sports and basketball, and I've been very fortunate to be able to be a part of it forever and still continue to be involved with it. But when you talk about my shoe, the Nike Air Swoopes, being the first, female athlete, let alone the first Black female athlete to have her own signature shoe with Nike back in 1997 was the first pair, was pretty special for me. And obviously it was very special for all the young girls up and coming. And we can get into that later, but you see where we are with that and all the other women who've come after me who now have their own signature shoes. So, for me, it was always bigger than myself and bigger than the moment. And that's where we are today. I was fortunate enough to be able to have 6-7 different versions of my shoe from 1997 until, I'm a lot older, so my math isn't as good as it should be anymore. But it was a special moment. Nike just approached me about, designing a women's basketball shoe before I knew it was going to be my own shoe. Because, when I grew up and I played, there weren't any women's basketball shoes. It was all about the men. And I always played in men's basketball shoes. So when I got that opportunity to have a conversation with Nike about what was important to me in a women's shoe and then helping to design it and then to ultimately find out that it was going to be named after me, the Nike Air Swoopes, you can only imagine how emotional I got at that moment. And the crazy thing is that when I think about it, I still get emotional to this day, just having a conversation and reliving that moment.
Absolutely. I can imagine. Very poignant. I want to get your take, Sheryl, on what you see with the WNBA right now. Season began. There's a new superstar in the league. And I wonder to how much what we've seen so far is just the veterans giving the rookie a welcome to the WNBA kind of moment with what some people are saying are some hard fouls.
I first want to just say good, bad, indifferent. The fact that so many people are talking about women's basketball is is different And it's good. It's conversation every single day, which has never happened. You know, Sue Wicks, who played for the New York Liberty back in the day when I played, she posted something on Facebook and I shared it because I thought with all the conversation and everything that everybody has to say about women's basketball today, even those who've never watched the game before, Sue was so spot on with what she said. And to me, when the league first started back in '97, you know, we were just excited to have a league to play in. And again, it's always been about leaving things better than we found it. And the fact that these women are doing the things they're doing today, they have the eyeballs on the game that they have today. They have these crazy endorsements and, you know, wonderful opportunities. That's what we've always wanted. And not just for Caitlin, for every single young lady that's in the league today. That's this rookie class that came in that I know everyone's excited about, everyone's talking about. But it's also the vets and the OGs and the players who've been in this league for a while. I think it's great for the game. It's exciting. And, you know, it's basketball. It's sports. And the thing that really gets me is, you know, at first people were saying, well, when women start to dunk, more people will tune in and watch. I never agreed with that. I never believed it because to me, women's basketball has always been fun. It's always been exciting. The difference today is one, I think it's social media. You have a place where you can really connect with these players and feel like you know them. So then you you follow them in college, then you move on to the WNBA. And you know, when you talk about hard fouls, and I know the conversation over the last few days and even today has been the foul Kennedy Carter on Caitlin Clark. And, you know, I think one thing everybody agrees on, myself included, is that foul was foul. Mm-hmm. It was not a basketball play. It was unnecessary. And so, of course, everyone gets in an uproar. But when I go back and I look at so many other fouls and situations and things that has happened in the WNBA over the past couple of weeks, you know, Alyssa Thomas clotheslining Angel Reese and taking her down. I mean, to me, that was worse than what happened to Caitlin, but there's no uproar over that. So I guess at the end of the day, the hard fouls, the physical play, the contact, it's all part of sports.
It's part of the game, right?
I'm not saying anything that's not stuff that's not a part of the play, right? The unnecessary stuff that has no place in sports. But listen, if you're gonna play sports, I don't care male or female, I don't care what sport it is, there's going to be trash talking, there's going to be physical play, and if you can dish it out, you got to be able to take it.
Sheryl Swoopes, 4-time WNBA champion, 3-time MVP, won the NCAA championship with Texas Tech back in '93. But I want to hear about some of your happenings off the court. You know, since you've retired, you know, you've been involved in a lot of different things. I know breast cancer awareness is one of them. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in healthcare advocacy and particularly as it relates to cancer treatment?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You know, I feel like for myself personally, sports gave me so many opportunities, obviously while I was playing and on the court, but since I retired and the things that are important to me and that I'm passionate about off the court, sports gave me that platform to be able to have a voice. And being a spokesperson for RadNet, and especially when it comes to breast cancer, is definitely something I'm passionate about. My mom had 13 brothers and sisters, and excuse me, at least 7 of them passed away from some form of cancer. My mom passed away 7 years ago to colon cancer. 3 aunts passed away from breast cancer. 3 uncles passed away from prostate cancer. So this is one that's very near and dear to my heart. And just to be able to get the awareness out there and talk to not just women, but, you know, talk to men as well about the importance of getting your mammograms and early screening. And, you know, one stat that really stood out to me when I decided to be a part of RadNet and talk to them was, you know, that breast cancer it's the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths among young women. And I I had a mammogram done about a month ago when I was in New York for a RadNet event. And the radiologist saw something on my mammogram that she didn't like. So we immediately did some more images. Then I ended up having a biopsy. And I have to tell you, for anyone out there who's listening, if you've never had a mammogram, first of all, it wasn't painful. It didn't hurt. The worst part of it was the stress of, is there going to be something there? Are they going to see something? But I have to say, I was so glad I did it. The worst part was the waiting period. About 3 or 4 days after I had my biopsy, I got the results back and it came back. Everything was fine. But, to me, it's a matter of life or death, right? If you have your mammograms, you get screened. If they see something early enough, they could absolutely, there's a treatment plan and it could possibly save your life. So that's why this is something that's so near and dear to my heart and so important for me to be able to have a voice in it.
I think you said it very well, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mom who died from breast cancer. It's no secret. My wife right now is going through cancer, and I want to. There's some language I want to use.
Yeah, I am. Oh gosh, I'm going to try not to get emotional. First of all, I'm so sorry. Cancer, and it doesn't matter what kind it is, right? It's one of it's the ugliest disease out there. It's the one thing that doesn't discriminate. And to me, that's why it's so important. And especially in the African American community and the Black and brown communities, it's something that we just don't talk about it for whatever reason. I know my mom didn't, my aunts didn't. When we found out my mom had cancer, she was already in stage 4. And for whatever reason, it's just something we don't talk about. One thing I will say, again, with RadNet, they have this program, it's called Mammoglam. But they also have these screening facilities in Walmarts. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the best ideas, best things out there, because for people who go to Walmart, you shop at Walmart, you're already there shopping anyway. So why not get your groceries, get whatever else you need, and just get your mammogram? It's something that could potentially save a life. And I'm so thrilled that I get an opportunity to be a part of something that's so important.
Sheryl Swoopes, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're out there fighting a good fight against cancer. I cannot say enough, and thank you so much for coming on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. It means a lot to a lot of people out there listening, and especially to me. Fight the good fight. Thank you so much, Sheryl.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show. We are here each and every week. We're not kidding. At the same time, plus online wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe now on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. For my colleagues Scarlet and Damian Sassower, I'm Michael Barr. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big old money. I'm not talking that small chump change. Big old money in the world of sports. You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world. Stay with us. Today's top stories and global business headlines are coming up right now